So guys, I just listened to a really interesting conversation between Tucker Carlson and the man from Great Britain himself, Piers Morgan. And it was, as you can imagine, really interesting. Both guys are very intelligent, they are eloquent, and they've got good humor. But Tucker was just, he was on his game. Had really, really insightful, interesting points he brought up. And one of the main things that kind of stimulated and drew my attention is this idea of fascism. Because we hear about fascism all the time. We hear Donald Trump, he's accused of being a fascist. Charlie Kirk was accused of being a fascist, or still is, posthumously, which is just so disgraceful. And we have other people, other conservative commentators who are also accused of being a fascist. From the media, from people on the far left. And you have to ask yourself, like, why is that? What's the purpose behind the term fascism? Because there's never a drawn-out explanation. It's always just character slurs, invectives to try to silence them because they're very effective in their communication. So if you can delegitimize the messenger by comparing them to the Nazis and Adolf Hitler, then clearly people aren't going to want to listen to what they have to say. And while it's becoming less and less effective, it still has a certain luster to it that draw people's attention. So I started thinking, what are the main components of fascism? Well, I'm not going to go through and list all of them, but the main component is this. There can be no dissent, no deviation from the established status quo by the governing structure, whether it's a dictator, a king, whatever government's in place. And we saw that all throughout the Soviet Union. We've seen that in Mao Zedong in China. We see that all throughout history, okay? We're seeing that, by the way, right now in the United Kingdom. I mean, the United Kingdom, where in many ways has been the beacon of Western civilization, which is a champion of freedom of speech. I mean, that is foundational. The First Amendment we have here in this country, the Bill of Rights, is the freedom of speech, which Great Britain, again, much of what we have here in America, my ancestors, a lot of the people's ancestors here in America came from Great Britain, came from England. And in many ways, the Magna Carta, which they established, I'm not going to go and get into the Magna Carta, but that document and other documents subsequently after that established the preeminence, the importance of being able to say what you believe without the threat of being persecuted, okay? So right now, okay, in the United Kingdom, there are people who are being prosecuted for saying things, okay, openly. No, not threats. I'm not talking about people threatening other people on social media, which obviously would be understandable to prosecute. We're talking about people just, and I'm going to give you a few examples, saying things that the status quo in the government disagrees with. And by the way, there's more of that happening. This is just the truth. You can look it up. There's more of that happening in the United Kingdom than Russia. Not defending Russia, not defending Vladimir Putin. They have their own issues. But you'd never believe that if you listen to CNN and all the other garbage online and on TV. So there's a woman recently in the UK praying outside of an abortion clinic. Wasn't causing any issues, wasn't causing havoc, praying peacefully, and she legitimately has been prosecuted. I believe imprisoned. But she was arrested. I know that. She was arrested for praying peacefully out. And this is not hyperbolic. She wasn't like out there screaming at people and threatening people. She was praying peacefully. And this is, guys, I would love to say that was just an isolated incident and the police had a mishap. That is happening all of the time in the UK. This is not hyperbolic. I'm not exaggerating. You have people being arrested for saying things via text message. Now, even if it's maybe offensive to someone's ears, it doesn't matter. What we're seeing in the UK is exactly what these people want to do all throughout Western civilization. And it got me thinking, so who are the real fascists? Because when you think about Donald Trump, because he's such a polarizing figure for so many people, but when you think about Donald Trump, okay, who I'm a huge fan of, by the way, I have no problem admitting that, usually it centers around immigration. And when you look at Donald Trump's, his opinion about immigration, you look at Bill Clinton. Heck, Barack Obama deported millions of people during his presidency. I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, that is the facts. So Donald Trump's position on immigration, while it may seem like super far right and fascist today, if you were to actually look back in history, it's basically moderate. He's just saying, look, we need to enforce the immigration laws, which you come into this country illegally, you know what? You have every right to be deported. Okay? And by the way, people who are here on green cards and overstaying their visas, people who are not adapting and embracing Western culture, specifically American culture. And I'm not talking about people who just choose not to and they're citizens. I'm talking about people who are here on green cards and visas. They are rejecting our way of life, which again, the way of life of America, yes, people say we are a melting pot. That is the truth. But there's an undergirding culture here in America that was birthed from Western civilization, a belief that we were given our rights by God, that we have Christian morals and principles that we adhere to. It's not about this draconian implementation of things we're forcing like a theocracy. No, but there's a foundation that was laid. And so I don't want to digress, but that is what he's being accused of. He's being accused of being a fascist because he's wanting to enforce immigration laws. He's wanting to make sure people who are here on green cards, on visas, are adhering to the expectations that we have here in America. That is what he's being accused of being a fascist of. Now, let me just tell you this really quickly. The people who I would say, the definition of fascism, as I said, who are intolerant, who want to censor anything that deviates from the status quo, is the LGBTQ. And I'm not saying the people who comprise that. There are groups, there are organizations who are the most militant of anyone out there. Not just here in America, all across the globe. So you have to ask yourself, the people who run these organizations, who advocate for LGBTQ issues, they are the most militant, and they are the ones who resemble, let me just say this very, very succinctly, they resemble the definition of fascism more than anyone else. So you have to ask yourself, you have people out there who run these organizations, who advocate for these policies, who tell people you need to embrace these lifestyles as almost a superior way of living. And then if you deviate from that at all, if you speak out against that, you are the bigot, you are the one who is fomenting hate, you are the one who is creating havoc and fear-mongering by simply saying, perfect example would be the guy who runs Chick-fil-A a few years ago, said, I believe in traditional marriage. You would have thought he dropped an atom bomb on an innocent community. That's all he said. This is a perfect example, guys. And I'm not even like debating the issue, although I could easily debate the issue and how destructive that ideology is and how wayward it is from the actual fundamental truth. Like, that's just the bottom line. The LGBTQ ideology, if you can even call it that, is such a departure from just the natural law, from basic science and biology. It's just the truth. But aside from that, there is no room for deviation from that at all. And so I have to ask myself, and that's just a microcosm, okay? It's just a microcosm. Because when you think about the people who are espousing ideas, who are trying to promote things like Donald Trump, who has a blueprint of making America great again, first and foremost by securing the border, by enforcing immigration law, by deporting people who are here illegal. And by the way, anyone who comes into this country illegally has committed a crime. That's the bottom line, okay? So by doing that, they're considered a fascist. And we don't actually think about, what are we saying? Like, what are we believing? The people who just believe that and drink that in are not doing the research, they're not thinking introspectively, and they're not considering what the term even means. So again, this video is meant to be short. It's meant to kind of stimulate some thoughts here. And Tucker did a great job of just like, again, Tucker is brash sometimes. He uses some colorful language, which, but he is so effective in communicating this message, because at the end of the day, the real fascists are the people who are imprisoning others for saying things they disagree with, which, by the way, when you look at that, when you look at truly who are the UK imprisoning and prosecuting, it's the people who are questioning the LGBTQ issues. It's the people questioning abortion. It's going to be people who are questioning the belief in the orthodoxy that we're somehow creating catastrophic climate change, which, by the way, this is the first time in history in America that no hurricane has formed in the Gulf of America, I should say. But again, it's just, but these certain things, guys, and you have to ask yourself, I'll end with this. What a litmus test should be, it doesn't matter what the issue is, because, by the way, there's some of that stuff permeating the right. Okay, you can't question the Israeli government, for example. Like, if you questioned, like, if Benjamin Netanyahu or the Israeli government, is waging the war fairly in Gaza, if you question that, well, it's assumed you're an anti-Semite. It's a very similar thing permeating certain parts of the right. So we have to be really careful because it's a sickness, it's a plague to brand people something to silence them. And so a really quick litmus test is this. Which people out there are wanting to censor and destroy anyone who questions their beliefs? And let me just say this really quickly about President Trump, because some people will say, what about Jimmy Kimmel? Jimmy Kimmel's still on the air. If Donald Trump wanted his the head of the FCC to completely take him off the air, okay, but he didn't. He's back on. And he's still criticizing and poking fun and attacking Trump every single night. So no, Trump did not shut Kimmel down. He did not. He's still on air. And by the way, Trump, it's just so funny that people would even consider that he's the one trying to censor and oppress in a fascist way. He is the brunt of constant attacks, constant vilification, and he's just winning because he knows how to leverage his satire and his trolling better. That's just the bottom line. But okay, anyway, use that as a litmus test, guys, wherever you're at. If someone's trying to censor a conversation, censor an idea, and they're telling you it's a threat, it's an existential threat, know that they're lying, because the fact of the matter is, when can you think of a time, think of this, in human history, when have a group of people tried to silence anything that was a flat out lie? If something was a lie, why would it matter? Just let the lie fizzle out, right? Things that are true, and I will end with this, the things that really matter, the things that people say that are actually true and precise and cut to the core, those are the things that people want to silence the most, because the truth, when it's manifested, it sets people free. The truth it sets the prisoners free. When people are set free, the elite, those who are in power, are the most threatened, because a group of people set free no longer depends upon the disillusionment from those who are in power. All right, that's all I got. You guys have a great week. Later.